because we talked about how much they've used the portal and how many guys they're getting out of the portal this year, how many guys from the portal they expect to start. And one thing we talked about when we talked about it last week is, for the most part, they are homegrown in the trenches. Most of their starting offensive and defensive linemen are guys they recruited out of high school. Akeem Mesidor is a transfer from West Virginia on the D-line, but he's been there. I think this is his 4th year there now at this point. So like it's almost entirely homegrown. I believe their center is a transfer this year. So like, you and I have been very clear. We think the best way to compete for national championships, build a national championship type roster, is through high school recruiting. Is it possible that it's required to do that in the trenches, but you can do more in the portal with the skill positions? I feel like Miami's the test case for that.
Yeah, I think that it's certainly. How many times has like a first round offensive lineman transferred? Like, we talked about the scarcity of receiver.
Josh Simmons last year.
That's right. But when he transferred, he wasn't.
Right.
When he was a liability 2 years ago.
Well, and Ohio State is a really good example of this. Ohio State this past year, Michigan the year before, both of them had taken some transfers and started transfers along their offensive line, a couple of them that were 1-year rentals. But the bulk of the guys in the trenches were homegrown guys.
I was just going down the list because like it's an interesting thought exercise, because we both have come to agree, and you found through data that ready-made receivers aren't in the portal very often. And I'm wondering if you actually did the math for every position. I feel like offensive tackle would probably be similar to that.
Anecdotally, offensive linemen move less, especially once they're already in a power conference. Now, Isaiah World, for example, the guy going from Nevada to Oregon this year, the offensive tackle, that is strictly a play to try to become a first rounder. Like that, he wanted to move to a power conference school to try to become a first rounder because he has the measurables for it. But for the most part, like, because Josh Simmons was San Diego State to Ohio State. Like, he wasn't coming from another, like an SEC school or an ACC school.
And also, if you remember, Josh Simmons 2 years ago, people thought he should be benched. It's not, I mean, like ready-made, no doubt about it, offensive linemen, not good ones that are going from, the kid from Rice that went to Ohio State too might end up being a first-round draft pick one day as well. But and he probably was more ready-made than a lot of players in that position. People were excited about that pickup, but there's no. I just don't think you can build your offensive line through the portal, 1 through 5. So I think that the thing that's the interesting part is if you had to focus on one position in high school and then worry about the portal, I think the offensive line would be certainly a position I'd want to focus out of high school. I think receiver would be too. Maybe not so much quarterback because there's a lot of those, but still maybe quarterback. Here's the thing that I think is interesting, Andy. In the world of I'm going to rely heavily on the portal, but I'm going to do high school recruiting to a certain extent that's good enough where I'm not transient. Because I think Miami is semi-transient, but Florida State is very much transient. Miami still recruits a top 15, top 10 class every year. They're not recruiting high schoolers. I think that Florida State, if you go back and look at their Mike Norvell high school results, it doesn't look like Florida State classes. They're not necessarily, in the 100% transient camp, but do you do it by position or you do it by X number of top 100 players or top 300 players a year that you have to bring in to all across the board in order to get to that point?
Well, and that's my question. Is it more position specific? I think it's more necessary for the big guys than it is for the skill guys, but that's just a theory. I don't know if that's true or not. I think Miami is going to help us test that theory.
Yeah, I think that you have to have a certain baseline of incoming talent in numbers, if I had to guess, more so than specific positions. But what we do know about the offensive line is if you have a really good one in college, you're going to score.
Notre Dame is a great example of this. Notre Dame's offensive line is fantastic.
And I know that Jaden Greathouse had a really good postseason, but Notre Dame made it to the national championship game without any legitimate first round viewed skill position players on the outside. Now, Jeremiah Love obviously is a skill position player that helped a lot. But their offensive line was the driver of that. I'm with you. I view Florida State, and I keep bringing them up because they are the most extreme example of the highs and lows.
Well, and also when we're talking about Miami, like Florida
Yeah,
State is a team that recruits against them. They play every year. It makes sense. Yeah.
But like, I think that Miami is building their roster, or has in the last 4 years, in a more healthy, sustainable way than Florida State has. Like, I think that there are people who just aren't paying attention, who think that Miami and Florida State are similar in how they're building their rosters. And if you actually like pull back the curtain, or, you know, pop the hood on that, like, that's not the case. So like, Miami is dangerous in the portal and in high school because of NIL, right? But also too, they've got a coach that has had a pretty good track record of winning. They had a really good season last year. You know, I think they were a game away from the playoff. Like, there's a lot to like about the build there. Like, I don't think that I would view this move, if Cantwell were to go there, as him selling his soul to go to a second-rate program. I think that he's going to a program that should be viewed as an up-and-coming contender. And they're dangerous. So, yeah, like, I think that this would be a huge move. And I think that you're right, Andy, that I think we could both be right. Like, I think there's multiple ways to create a national championship caliber roster, but I think having, like, where did you have Notre Dame in your top 25? Are they top 3 because of their offensive line?
And number 2.
Care about that. Number 2. Yeah. So like, that is a big deal. It's a huge deal if you can run the football and protect your quarterback. There's no question. And it just kind of goes back to like the number one philosophical thing. And I did this 3 years ago at the Athletic, or 4 years ago now, but like, asking player personnel people, if they had X, like $5 million budget, it didn't really matter what the number was. How would you allocate percentage wise the money to what positions and how many? And I got a large variety of different answers from people who work in the business of it. Some people are like, I'm getting my quarterback and then worrying about everything else first. Some people are like, I'm getting a defensive tackle who can disrupt every play on defense and then worrying about everything else. Left tackle was one that also came up. So you have, I mean, what are the 4 premium positions? Quarterback and tackle, defensive tackle, corner. and corner. Yeah. Those are 5.
Yeah, I'd say it's quarterback, offensive tackle, edge rusher, defensive tackle, corner. Those are
Would you rather have a bully defensive end or a bully nose guard?
I would rather have Ndamukong Suh in college, like, because you can blow up plays from the inside out. Now, I don't necessarily think it's not as valuable in the NFL, because I don't think there's that person who can just. I guess Aaron Donald did.
Yeah, Aaron Donald did it pretty good.
It's very hard to do. But in college, if you have that really transcendent defensive tackle like Nick Fairley at Auburn, who really couldn't translate that into the pros, like, you can blow up every play. And I think that's a very valuable thing. Ari, I have a question for you that you actually asked me a version of this before we got on the air, and I'm fascinated to hear what you have to say about it, because it's really interesting to me. But if you're watching on Twitter right now, go to the link below the link you're watching and click it. It'll take you to the YouTube page. You can hit subscribe, you can hit like, and you can join the chat. The chat is amazing. It's the best college football community going. So come on and join us on the YouTube page, because that's where you get the best experience of the show. So the chat is very lively today, very lively. So we'll see you on YouTube, and I'm going to ask Ari a question about the money aspect of this, because I think that's interesting too. Okay, Ari, now that we're all among friends on YouTube, you asked me this question before we got on the air, and I thought it was a really interesting way that you asked it. You said, pre-NIL, would Miami ever have a chance against Georgia for a guy like Jackson Cantwell?
Yeah, so the way I asked it to you was, if he picks Miami, is this the personification? I like that word. I don't think I always use it correctly, but I like it. Of NIL flattening the curve. Like, I think we probably have enough proof that there's going to be more parity in the sport as a result of this. And, you know, there are more teams. When I was doing my top 25, and I'm assuming that you jumped into this problem too when you were doing yours, you know, picking a top 10 was difficult. And trying to envision which teams you actually think are good enough to win a national title. I mean, I'm looking at the list here. Like, if Alabama won the national title, would that be weird? Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess
no, it wouldn't be weird at all. Yeah. You have Oregon. You have Oregon at number 9. And we're going to talk about Ari's top 25 all day tomorrow. So save your takes on that, because I want to hear them all. But you have Oregon at number 9. Like, it would not shock me in the least if Oregon won the national title this year.
Yeah. I think too that, like, there's some overvaluing of players and talents, but we'll talk about it. I think that, like, my cutoff for the national championship is just a lot different than it would have been 4 years ago. He said this over and over again. And it's like, also too, if somebody in the teens gets hot, like, it's not out of the question to think that somebody 16 through 20 could do it. Like, what if Austin Simmons is the best quarterback in America this year? Like,
after we had him on the show, I was like, I got to move Ole Miss up like 10 spots.
I'm just saying, like, the notion that a team 11 through 20 could do it is not insane. I doubt that it'll happen, but it's not as insane as it would have been to think that, 4 years ago. But if you assume that Cantwell going to Miami probably would not have occurred in the past life of college football in 2019, then a 5-star player at a premium position going to a program that's trying to build over one of the traditional dominant powerhouses is literal proof that it's just a different game now. Like, that's, I mean,
and where did the number 1 offensive tackle in the country go last recruiting cycle?
Yeah.
He went to Tennessee, which was not one of those schools that was getting those guys.
Yeah, and Tennessee, also a team that I think values the offensive line position, especially considering the fact that they probably backed up the Braves truck for him. So, yeah, like, back in 2019, these players just go to Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia. Like, I wonder what his top 3 would look like right now if there was no NIL.
Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia. I can tell you that right now.
Like,
that's exactly what it would be.
Like, if you want to bring Oregon into this.
Well, without Nick Saban, would Alabama be? That's a legit question. Like, would there be somebody else that replaced them? I don't know.
I mean, they had, I think, 8 top 100 players in their class last year with DeBoer. So, like, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't rule it out, but it's obviously a much different ball game. I think that, like, even like if you go look and do a list of, like, most teams that benefited from, or teams most benefiting from the NIL era, like Miami and Oregon will probably be in the top 3, right? And now look at them.
They're Miami, Oregon, Texas, Tennessee. Which Tennessee, I mean, double-edged sword for Tennessee based on this offseason. But
I think that that's going to help Tennessee in the long run. I really do. I think that they're going to learn from that. They're going to refine their deployment of their money.
Well, and I think with Georgia, they have to, and this is all part of the equation here. Like, Georgia has to walk a fairly fine line that Miami doesn't have to walk, because Georgia's already a national title contender. They're coming off an SEC championship. They have really good players who are already going to be are already high round NFL prospects. They will put, like, a bunch of the players from this year's Georgia team will get drafted, and will get drafted high. So you have to be really careful how much you pay a freshman at Georgia, because you can't pay a freshman more than somebody who starts for you who's going to be a first rounder next year.
I mean, that's also going to be a problem at Miami soon too.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
And then somebody else is going to get that guy once it becomes a problem in Miami.
Yeah, or the players in the future that are older and more experienced are going to get paid more than the market is set for the freshmen, and then it'll all flatten out that way. But, like, yes, you're right. But, like, if you add Cantwell to this mix, then Miami is in top 10s, or more likely to be in top 10s in the preseason for the next 4 years. Like, I don't know what your process was. I don't think that we actually even talked about it when we talked about your top 25 last week. So I want to talk about it when we do mine tomorrow. But, like, what was your process for ranking them? Like, I see how people get angry. There's a lot of, like, oh, my team beat that team last year, but that team's ranked ahead. Like, I don't even.
We're trying to. I mean, I'll tell you, part of it is I'm trying to judge what this year's roster is going to do, and that's why we do them again after the portals change.
I don't think about anything else that happened last year. I look, you know what my process is? Let's look at their 2 deep. How many good players do they have?
It's a pretty solid way to do it.
I don't think about narrative. I don't think about what they've done in the past. I don't think about how many games their coaches won in 2017. I think about who's on their team. And that's maybe why I overranked LSU a little bit. They've got a lot of really good players,